let's chat about April's prompt for my Christian fiction reading challenge. Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I'm going to talk about my Christian fiction reading challenge and the prompt for April. So here is my template, and I've added little stickers, book cover stickers to it. I'm so excited for this. I love the way it looks. Anyways, that's totally besides the point. So April's challenge is a new to you author. Okay, so I don't know what authors you've read. So I'm just going to talk about new to me authors, ones that I have read in the last couple years, and then ones that I have yet to read that are possibilities for me to read in the month of April. Back when I first started my channel, like in the early days of my channel, so May 2022, I did a video of Christian fiction authors I wanted to read that I had yet read from. And in that video, I mentioned 7 authors. So I thought, well, I'll revisit that, see which authors I mentioned, and have I read from them yet? Okay, the first author is Jamie Jo Wright. I did read one book from her in May of 22, so I read it like right away. That was The Curse of Misty Wayfair, and it wasn't a favorite of mine, and I have not tried any of her books since. Not that I'm not open to trying some, I just haven't. Okay, then the second author I mentioned was Joanna Davidson Politano. The book I read from her was A Rumored Fortune, and I read that in September of 22, so just a couple months later. I did not enjoy that book. I have not read any more from her since. Doesn't mean I won't try any others, because I have heard high praise for a lot of her other books. So maybe that was just kind of a dud book for me. Okay, then the next author is Elizabeth Camden. My first book from her was To the Farthest Shores, and I read this in December of 22. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I read her Hope and Glory series. This is book number 2 of the series, A Gilded Lady, and I loved this book. I really love this book, which is really funny because when I read book 1, I did not like the character of Carolyn. And then she is the main character in this book, and I loved this book. And I have picked up another 3-book series from Elizabeth Camden since to read, so I highly recommend. Okay, then the next author I mentioned was Sarah Sundin. And the first book I read by her was A Distant Melody, and I loved that book, that I immediately purchased books 2 and book 3 of that series so that I could finish, and I read that in September of 22. Since then, I have read 4 others besides that. So I've read 7 books since September 22 from Sarah Sundin. She is one of my favorite authors now. Okay, then the next author I mentioned was Carrie Stuart Parks. I have not read any books by her yet. However, I own, where is she? 1, 2, 3, I own 4 books by her, and I haven't read any of them yet. Okay, then the next author I mentioned was Julianna, and I finally read my first book by Julianna in February of 2024, so just last month. I have now read 2 books by her because I just read this one this month. And so kind of a sneak peek, because I haven't shared my March thoughts yet, is I gave this book 3 stars. It was okay. I like the characters. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I have a thing about book number 2s. I really think I do. I get to know the characters, and then I fall in love with the characters. Okay, then the last author I mentioned in that video was Carolyn Miller. And And I have the complete series of the original 6 hockey romance, which is a 6-book series. And I finally read book 1 in November of 23, which is called The Breakup Project. And I really loved that book. And I have read book number 2, Love on Ice, since then, which I also really enjoyed. So she's another author that's quickly moving up my list. And it helps that they are hockey based. I think that really helps me. Okay, so that is ones I mentioned in 2022. Yeah, 2022. In 2023, I read 15 new to me authors over the course of the year. Out of those 15, there are 6 authors that I definitely want to read more from. And those authors are, so the first one is Amy Lynn Green. The first book I read was The Blackout Book Club, which is a historical fiction following 4 viewpoints, 4 different characters who don't really seem to have anything in common other than they're living in Maine during the wartime. And the way they come together, I loved this. And this just made me fall in love with Amy's writing style, that I have read 3 books by her, like all 3 books that are out. I really enjoyed 2 of them. Third one, not one of my favorites, but I still really recommend her writing. Then the next one is Amanda Cox. And this is The Secret Keepers of Old Depot Grocery. It is another historical fiction. It is more of a dual timeline. We're following 3 generations of women, and it goes back to when like grandma was kind of the daughter's age, right? And you're following them growing up. I really, really connected with these characters and really enjoyed following this story. And I have since purchased, did I write it down? I purchased at least 2. I had to look at my shelf there. I purchased 2 more by her since that I want to read. Okay, then I read Kate Breslin, and the book I read was High as the Heavens. Again, it is a historical fiction, and I just fell in love with these characters. And I'm trying to think where it was set. It's overseas during World War II. Surprise, surprise. I cannot think of the country. They travel to London, but most of it's set in another country. It's escaped me. I can't think of it. And I really enjoyed that story and her writing style. And I have bought 3 more from her since that are sitting on my TBR. Okay, then Rachel Fordham. So the first book I read by her was The Letter Tree, which is the one book I do not have a physical copy of. I absolutely love that book, and I read that in October. Since then, I have read Yours Truly, Thomas, and The Hope of Azure Springs. So I read this one in January, and I just read this one this month, and I gave both of these ones 5 stars as well. And I own all of Rachel's other books. The only book I do not own is The Letter Tree. So at some point, I need to purchase that one so I can complete the collection of all her release books so far. I have fallen in love with her characters and her writing style, and just, yeah. So far, all 3 books I've read are 5 stars. So I highly recommend her. Again, these are historical fiction based, but they are not World War II. They are early or late 1800s. This one is, 1881 is when this one starts. And then this one picks up a few years later. So yeah, highly recommend her. Okay, then as I said, Carolyn Miller was another one that I discovered, I first read in 2023, and that was The Breakup Project and Love on Ice. Really enjoyed both of them. And the last one out of those 6 is Jeff Dixon, which this one does not really classify as a Christian fiction per se. It is a pastor that writes it. I'm pretty sure Jeff is a pastor. Based in Orlando, and these books are set at Disney World. And kind of a mystery and piecing clues together. My friend loaned me book 1, and I really enjoyed it. It was The Keys to the Kingdom. And I really want to continue this series. Okay. Then, so far this year, we are 3 months into the year, and I have read 3 new authors. Pretty good. So, the first one that I read this year was Julianna Deering. So I read Rules of Murder and Death by the Book, which is 1930s based in just outside London, England. And it's kind of an Agatha Christie type with like Miss Marple, Poirot kind of, right? Where we are following Drew, who gets pulled into these murders and trying to figure them out, who is not a detective. Okay, then another new one is Jennifer Delamere, and this was The Captain's Daughter. This is book 1 of the London Beginning series. I just read this one last month. I will be continuing this series. Again, it is set in London. It is historical fiction. Yeah, that's become this is where I'm finding new authors. And the last one so far this year, which I haven't even finished this book yet, but it is Lynn Austen, If I Were You. So this is the book I'm currently reading. I hope to finish it tonight. We're pretty close, and I am loving it. I don't know why I've waited so long to pick up a Lynn Austen book. Yeah. Okay, so those are new to me authors in the last few years. So what options do I have left for possibilities for April? Well, I came across 10 new authors of books that I own, which I was really kind of surprised to find because I feel like I've tried a lot of authors. Yes, I've read a lot of repeats, but I also feel like I've read a lot of authors. So I was going through like my own list. It's like, have I read from this one before? Have I, right? Okay, so I did come across 10. So I'm going to start with my Kindle books first. And I have done these little cards for my Kindle books. I'm going to put up the real book cover. But this is to help me remember them when I'm playing my TBR game. Because obviously I'm going to remember a physical book, but then I forget about the ones on my Kindle. But I wanted to be able to like kind of see the covers, but I also wanted to be able to like move them around so that I could put sets together, or I could sort them by genres, or I could sort them by author, kind of, right? Rather than having a printed sheet with them. So I did these little cards. And I'm excited to use these now. I just did them within the last couple weeks, so I haven't used them for my TBR game yet. But okay. So, and I am looking, and I was going to say, again, we have a lot of historical fiction. But actually, I mean, there is more historical fiction than anything else, but I do have kind of a mix, so that's good. Okay, so the first one I'm going to mention is Petticoat Detective by Margaret Brownlee, and I picked this one up as a Kindle freebie years ago. Like, I've had it on my Kindle for quite a while. It just sounded really interesting. I know it's historical. That's about all I know. Because, of course, I didn't even look up the description for this video. Maybe I should have. Okay, so there's option number 1. And then, the one that probably should move up my list, because it's an author I mentioned in that May 22 video, and I still haven't read from her, is Carrie Stuart Parks. And the book that's kind of like at the top of my list of all the ones that I own, that kind of I want to be the first one that I read from her because I've heard really good things about her, is Fragments of Fear. And so, again, I did not look up the description. I probably should have. It's a mystery suspense. Edge of your seat is what I've heard, so we'll see. And then we go into the rom-com, and that is Dear Henry, Love Edith by Becca Kisner. I think that's how you say her name. And this one just looks fun and sounds fun. So, yeah. Okay, then in books that I have physically. So I'm going to say Vinetta Chapman. This is Who the Bishop Knows. This is book 3 of the series. This is the one that I own. But it will not be the one that I start with because I'm going to read from book 1. And I can get book 1 from my church library. I just don't have it here. And book 1 is, did I even write it? Yes. What the Bishop Saw is book 1 of the series. So the author is Vinetta Chapman. So from what I understand, this is an suspense fiction romance is what the back says, and Amish. That's about all I know about it. My mom read this book and she really enjoyed it, so it is a book that she gave to me and said, I think you'll like it. Okay, then I have a historical, and this is Tamara Alexander. This is Beyond This Moment. I am shocked that I have not read from her. I thought, oh, I've read something by her. No. I have owned this book since 2017 because it still has the thrift store sticker on it that I remember. Yeah. And what does it say? Lives are made up of tiny steps. Some are chosen for us, some we choose. All hold the power to change who we become, but only if we let them. So it is historical, obviously. You can kind of tell by our outfit. And it's 1876, set in Colorado Territory. Okay, then, well, we can't leave off England. So I have a historical by Abigail Wilson. And this is Twilight at Mornington Cross. Mornington Cross. That word is really hard to say. And I just picked this one up last May, I want to say. And it says, Amelia Pembroke is in a unique position in Regency England. She has the option to obtain financial freedom, but in order to do so, she must marry one of 2 gentlemen. The trouble is, she might be falling in love with another man entirely. It just sounds really good. And it says it's 1819 Kent, England. And I love this cover. It really drew me in. I don't know why. Maybe, I don't know. And the purple? Okay, then Jody Headland. This is With You Always. This is another historical fiction. And could following the opportunity of a lifetime cost them the love of their lives? So I was recommended, was it this book I was recommended? Yes. I think it was this one. When I said that No Ocean Too Wide by Carrie Toransky is one of my favorite books, I was recommended this book. Pretty sure it was this book. Or it was book 2 of the series. This is book 1 of the series. And it just sounds really good. So one of the many immigrants struggling to survive in the 1850s New York, Elsie knows she must take action to care for her younger sisters. She finds a glimmer of hope when the New York Children's Aid Society starts sending skilled workers to towns out west. But the promise of the society's orphan trains is not at all as it seems. Yeah, I don't know, I'm really interested. And I think it's the orphan train thing that really interested me. And the next author is Amanda Dykes. This is Yours is the Night. And it says historical fiction, but I think it's a dual timeline. And I've heard really good things about Amanda Dykes. I've never read her. Again, that kind of shocked me that I hadn't read any by her. And it says, A Mysterious Song in the Forest. A discovery in war-torn France, a journey towards hope. So the trenches of the Great War are a shadowed place. Though Platoon Sergeant Matthew Pettigrew arrived, there was a past long marked by shadow. The realities of battle bring new wounds, carving within him a longing for light and a resolve to fight for it. I don't know. I've heard really good things about Amanda Dykes, And I think this is one of the books that was recommended to me. I should check my notes. And so I picked it up. And then we have Susie Finkbeiner. I have Stories That Bind Us. I found this one for $3.50. So I was like, okay, let's give it a try. And it says, I think it might be another historical fiction. It doesn't say. It has a quote from Victor Hugo on the very front. It actually doesn't say. Like, it doesn't start with a year in the beginning. So, rediscover the power of story to open the doors of our hearts. Betty Sweet never expected to be a widow at 40. With so much life still in front of her, she tries to figure out what's next, never imagining what God had in mind. When her estranged sister returns to town, Betty finds herself taking on the care of a 5-year-old nephew she never knew she had. In 1960s small-town Michigan, they make an odd pair. Betty with her pink button nose and bouffant hair, Hugo with his light brown skin and large brown eyes. But more powerful than what makes them different is what they share, the heartache of an empty space in their lives. Slowly they will learn to trust one another as they discover common ground and healing through the magic of storytelling. So it is historical 1960s. So not as historical as war, but yeah, and set in Michigan. That's cool. I'm pretty sure I've heard that Susie Finkbeiner is from Michigan. And I think, yeah. So, yeah. Okay, and then the last author is Catherine West. This is Where Hope Begins, and it is a contemporary. I'm pretty sure it's contemporary. And sometimes we're allowed to glimpse the beauty from within the brokenness. Now, I know that my best friend Christine read this one and really enjoyed it. So I do own 2 by Catherine West, and because of Christine's recommendation, I put this one as my possibility. So those are 10 books that are possibilities for me to read in April. Out of those 10 that I mentioned, is there any that you think I should kind of prioritize? Which one would you pick for the month of April? Let's chat in the comments below. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I would love it if you would like and subscribe to my channel. And the next video will be my April TBR. Thank you. Bye.